You guys are live. You're good.
I'd like to start off with a little nostalgia, a little look back to our childhoods. Obviously I'm older than you guys. I didn't grow up with you guys. We haven't really done a lot of that, but I think you should know it's apropos. It's appropriate today to when I was a kid. One thing we did for fun. I mean, we played ball, we played street hockey, but what we really loved to do were knife fights. We had knife fight like every day after, sometimes during school. We'd go out in the outdoor recess and I'd whip out my blade and we'd go at it. I mean, you don't even know this, but I mean, you can look at the video if you'd like. I only have 8 fingers. I had lost a couple. One of my ears, I lost my ear in a knife fight. One of my best friends.
Yeah.
We afterwards we'd shake hands, but we'd generally, shiv each other for fun and, to see who was king of the playground. I'm with Bree Newsom. I'm with Valerie Jarrett. These things happen. Kids have knife fights. Why do the cops need to get involved? Why can't a 16-year-old girl just butcher her friend without being interrupted by the police officers, by the cops? It just doesn't seem right. I mean, let's be honest. She might have lived. The girl. It was only about a 12-inch blade.
Yeah,
it was only headed straight for her heart. I mean, she might have pulled through in the end, and we could all have a good laugh.
Kids these days, Jerry, they're so soft. The pussification of America, right there. Kids can't even stab each other in peace without the cops getting called.
If only that cop had seen her on TikTok before, maybe this all could have changed. If he'd seen some of those posts that she made.
What, by the way, this doesn't matter, but the guy who is seen on the video kicking a woman while she's down on the ground, or a girl, we don't know the ages, on the video before the shooting, before the stabbing is stopped cold, the guy on the right is kicking the woman who's on the ground, and we haven't heard anything about him. Has he been arrested? Has he been charged? Because that's a pretty violent, vile.
You know who else we haven't heard from, Jerry? We haven't heard from the mother of the girl in the pink.
Right. We heard briefly from the girl in the pink. I mean, if you don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, we have heard from the girl in the pink.
Yes. Briefly, we heard she was walking to her car or to a car with the dog. Do you know she has a dog in her hand when she's about to be butchered? So this girl, Micaiah Bryant, was about to murder another girl, and anyone who thinks that it was just kids being kids is insane, and we'll get to that. There's a lot of it, and it's you have never seen a more revealing violent act. I mean, you've never seen a more revealing video. Can we be honest here? If the officer, and I don't know if we want to name him or not, I think why not? The guy's a hero. Nicholas Reardon, the Columbus police officer, Nicholas Reardon, a current member of the Air National Guard and a marksman, an expert marksman, and generally I think you get your expert marksman status with rifles. Well, he's pretty good with a pistol too, because he stopped a murder, saved the life of a child, and if he's not honored by somebody in some form or fashion, if we don't hold him up as a hero, then we are not. Then we've failed as a civilized society, because that's what he is. I'm sorry, LeBron James. I'm sorry, Valerie Jarrett and Ayanna Presley and the rest of you lunatics. Nick Reardon is a hero who should be given whatever they get: commendations, medals, ribbons. He should be promoted. He should be. We should know him. He should be introduced to the world. Say, this is why cops do what they do to save the life of a young girl in pink and the dog. She has a little dog, but she's walking to her car and she just said one sentence. She said, yeah, she was going to stab me, and he stopped her. That's all she says. But I'll tell you, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but here, Turtle Boy, here's where I do. On this one, on this one comment.
Okay.
Because I was nervous, and I still am. I'm afraid, I'm nervous that she will side with the mob against the cop who saved her life. That's how strong and intimidating and disgusting the mob has gotten in this country.
She might say something like, well, she was just, we stab each other sometimes. Look, she was talking a lot of shit, but she didn't need to die.
There's no doubt that somebody is trying to convince her to make such a statement, because there are protests. They're taken to the streets. They're demanding justice and everything else, even though we saw the video cam. So I'm guessing somebody in that community is talking to the girl in pink and saying, you can't side with the cop. We hate cops. We're BLM. We want to defund cops. We don't want this guy to be honored. And her voice matters. I mean, if she comes out, she's with her mother and does an interview and says, thank God for Officer Reardon. He saved my life. That doesn't help the cause. Would you agree? I mean, that Ayanna Pressley's not going to like that. Let's
anything that makes cops look like human beings is bad for business. You don't
and you know what? This is the definition of heroism, of courage, because he didn't have time to think and to consider the consequences. And if the video was pointing in the wrong direction, like if he moved and the video was pointing over here, over there, and didn't catch the blade coming back, heading for this poor girl's heart, what are we saying today? What are we doing today if we didn't see on video the act that he prevented, the knife pinned against the car, knife coming back? I mean, Dave keeps showing the picture. It is the greatest evidence you'll ever see. If we don't see that picture, if that doesn't come out of the body cam, what are we saying today? This cop is in big trouble.
It was probably the guy Tom Elliott who posts a lot of the news clips or whatever. And it's great that we have body cam footage, but if Wolf Blitzer is going to go on television and use the word "she appears to attempt to do something," like, I know what I'm looking at right now, Wolf. Like, I know what I'm seeing. It's
did they say that Derek Chauvin appeared to be on George Floyd's neck? Did they say that too, or no?
No. Here's the crazy thing is this story, and it's obviously tragic. A 16-year-old Micaiah Bryant, a poor kid who's in foster care, whose mother is doing interviews, and we'll get to mom, but didn't even have custody of the child. But she lost her life. That's tragic. That's awful. But this whole thing in a nutshell tells you so much about the current state of the country in this current climate, when the likes of Bree Newsom, BLM leader, or Valerie Jarrett, or LeBron James can't even say, well, in this case, it's tragic, this girl lost her life, but this cop is a hero. He saved another girl. End of story. I mean, we can't even do that with this story. I don't think, I'm not sure when we ever come together. And by the way, these voices, some of them, LeBron James, and I'm going to put top of the list, LeBron James, Joe Biden. How about that? The most prominent athlete and the most prominent person in the country. They are disgusting. You are disgusting, race-baiting demagogues who should be ashamed of yourselves. I mean, LeBron had to, delete his tweet and explain himself. Joe Biden does nothing. Joe Biden sends his flack out there to talk about systemic racism again, instead of saying, let's all tip our caps to this cop for saving a young girl's life. And if you really want to get, deep dive into the culture, what the hell is a 16-year-old pulling out a knife and trying to kill another 16-year-old for? What has gone wrong here? Where that would be a good question for a leader, but Joe Biden is not a leader. He's a coward. To sit there and talk about systemic racism as if you're afraid that you'll hear from whoever, Ibrahim Kendi or Black Lives Matter, and they'll jump on your ass if you tell the truth about this. He can't even tell the truth about this one incident. It's embarrassing that this is our commander-in-chief who doesn't have the guts to come out and tell the truth about this one thing. It's incredible to me.
I mean, this is such a layup. This is an easy one. If we can't agree on, and this is what I said yesterday, Jerry. It's like we can't live in the same country as these people anymore. I mean, eventually we're going to come to a point where I'm like, we will never have anything in common. We obviously, our view of how the world should operate and a society should function are completely at odds with one of each other. Like, we believe in law and order. You believe in literal anarchy. And eventually, like, we don't need a war, but we need some type of divorce, right? Like you can have your fucked up country and we'll have a regular country, and you do your little experiment over there, and eventually it's going to have to come to that.
And over there, you can have cops, but they won't stop murders if they're being conducted by, black teenagers. The cops won't stop them because, that's somehow racist, and you're against that.
I mean, they tried it with Chaz this summer. Just make it bigger, make Chaz bigger, make Chaz half the country. They can have it.
But we got to get to LeBron. We can place Jen Psaki, which is sickening. Because people can't even condemn this one or salute to honor this cop and condemn this act. They have to sit there and talk about she's a child. Children can, try to murder other children. There's another story we can get to. A 13-year-old the other day stabbed a 13-year-old girl in Cincinnati, also in Ohio. Last I checked, a 13-year-old girl stabbed another 13-year-old girl to death. Slit her throat with a little penknife. And it's a good thing the cops weren't there. They might have stopped a murder.
Yeah.
And then what?
Are they saying her name too? Are they saying?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Is that girl? Is she going on? No. Is the dead girl in Cincinnati going on the back of a T-shirt? Is she a hashtag? When do we march for her exactly? Oh, that's right, because her life didn't matter ultimately.
Just like the 7-year-old Chicago killed in the drive-through the other day, and not one tweet, not one comment from Ayanna Pressley or AOC or Rashida Tlaib or LeBron James. Do you realize I didn't do this search? Someone else did. I just retweeted it last night. LeBron James has never, according to this guy who did the search, has never tweeted about the violence in Chicago. Never. As I pointed out yesterday, there were 907 people shot in Chicago already this year. Children, 7-year-old at the drive-through the other day, 4-year-olds in their, in the kitchen doing homework or whatever. And and LeBron never has tweeted about it, never has talked about it. He talks about the racist cops hunting us down like animals and says this has to stop. This just keeps happening. No, it doesn't just keep happening. What just keeps happening is young black kids are dying in Chicago every day, every night, because the violence is out of control, but it's not the white cops killing them. So LeBron has no interest. But let's get to LeBron because he is just repulsive. LA Lakers forward, Red Sox owner, LeBron James, with perhaps the most disgusting tweet I think I've ever seen, at least the most disgusting tweet that's not going to be banned or lead to a ban from Twitter. Here it is, LeBron James. I couldn't believe I saw this on my feed. He shows a picture of the cop, Nick Reardon. First picture, this is the first photo I've seen of him. I saw of him was when LeBron tweeted it out. And he has the gall to type, "You're next," with an hourglass and hashtag accountability. Now, if you don't know what doxing is, this is the definition. A picture saying we're coming after you. And immediately
50 million followers.
50 million people see it, and a good number of them, not most, but many of them retweet and say, let's get the guy. Let's we got to get him. He killed a black teenager, and no mention. And it just it's almost beyond words, Turtle Boy. And I tweeted, how about you just say thank you, officer, and go back to your privileged life. What LeBron did here is sickening on so many levels. He ignores the fact that this cop saved the life of a young black girl. Ignores it, just completely ignores it like it didn't happen. That's dishonest. That's a lie. You're a liar, LeBron James. You're a liar, and you're a disgusting person. What you did here is disgusting. That is going to motivate somebody to maybe not, kill Nick Reardon, but there'll be one of these, online campaigns. You know what it's like. They're coming after him. They're going to make his life difficult. They're going to demand, hearings and trials, and, CNN will probably pick up on it. MSNBC. Joy Reid's probably already going through his file, trying to find some kind of dirt on him to not let us honor him or treat him as he should be treated, which is as a hero. But imagine being that guy, LeBron James, and thinking that's appropriate to write, "You're next. We're coming for you. You're next."
Because LeBron James is infamous for being ignorant. For a guy who, about a month ago, there was some soccer player I'd never heard of before who criticized LeBron for not knowing, for speaking out on politics too much. And I believe the quote was something that I tweeted out. It was something to the extent of, you should be more educated. You should read up on it. Yes. That's the same thing he said, by the way, about Daryl Morey when he said free Hong Kong. It's like Daryl needs
educated.
Not everybody has a high school participation trophy like LeBron James. And we all haven't. Some of us haven't gotten past page 2 of the Hunger Games like LeBron James has. So he's obviously much smarter. But for a guy who says something like that, he is the literal definition of a person who doesn't know anything, doesn't look anything up, which is why he deleted the tweet. My question is, when I'm reading the replies to LeBron's thing, I mean, he's getting ratio. He had a follow-up tweet. He got ratioed into oblivion. Does somebody like LeBron read his mentions and realize? Because I do. When I put something out there that's wrong, I'm a little embarrassed about it. You know what I mean? Like, does LeBron get embarrassed? He's like, oh man, I screwed that one up.
I was wondering who.
You took it too far. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Raiders tweet.
I don't know if he did. I don't know if he did.
Well, he deleted the tweet and he put out a couple more tweets explaining it or whatever. And I was wondering, who's in his inner circle that's telling him. Here's this is one of his follow-up tweets after he deleted the tweet doxing the officer. He said, "I'm so damn tired of seeing black people killed by police. I took the tweet down because it's being used to create more hate. This isn't about one officer." That's exactly what it was about.
But he didn't take it down because it was wrong. He took it down because it's creating more hate. So he's also a victim. Like, the tweet also made him a victim. So that's why he's taking it down, because people are being mean to me.
I point this out on occasion about the athletes that you see, professional athletes, stars, who think they're smart and they're not really smart. And I understand why they get that impression. And I used to use the example of Roger Clemens all the time, because anytime he spoke, there'd be 100 guys around him with notebooks and cameras and microphones hanging on his every word. So as a human being, not a bright one, but as a human being, you start to think, boy, my words matter. My thoughts matter. These people really care about my thoughts. And they start thinking that they're somehow they're profound. They're deep and thoughtful, and people really need to hear what they have to say. And there's a few examples, and them off the, Sugar Ray Leonard used to be one of those people. Clemens was the best example. LeBron James is close second as an example of a guy who, because he's got so many media members fawning over him, it might be worse with LeBron because of the whole ESPN culture where they worship the man and think, he's an important, civil rights figure, a guy who's never said or done anything risky off the court. Everything he does is safe and profitable and calculated, and the media, the whole, whatever, Max Kellerman, the around the horn crowd, they all just adore him and everything he says. So he does something like this. He doesn't think it's a problem. He doesn't think it through. You put the picture of the cop and say, "You're next." If it were somebody on the other side of the aisle, they'd be banned by Twitter right now permanently. If that's, I don't even know what athlete, would do. Aubrey Huff, Kurt Schilling, Lenny Dykstra, who, if they did that with somebody else, they would immediately be banned from Twitter, and you might never see them again. Hell, Twitter would be the first, then it would be Facebook and YouTube and Google and PayPal. They would end up getting turtle boyed. They would get
they would get turtle boyed.
Banned by everybody. But it's LeBron James, the golden child. He can do no wrong. Even that's how bad this tweet was. LeBron James was pressured to take it down and apologize. I wouldn't call it.
And just like the tone in that tweet was like cryptic. It was like, "You're next." Like, what does that mean? Like, it just kind of proves that, like, the George Floyd thing was never about George Floyd. It was never about giving a shit that George Floyd died or care about his family. It was about this never-ending thirst for vengeance. That's what this is. Like, "You're next." We're making lists. These people have power. You've seen the tweets that came out when Joe Biden became president. It's like, "You Trump people, you're going to pay. You're going to pay." And they've backed it up.
And I was going to say their actions followed the words. And we've seen, disabled veterans.
The insurrectionists are
And
all sitting in
you're
jail
lucky you're
without bail.
free. You're wearing a red hat right now. You realize that's a felony in this day in America, right?
Yeah,
Wearing a
it
red
doesn't. It doesn't matter what it says at the top.
No,
Hey, Turtle Boy Live, buddy.
and if you're not following the right people, you don't realize how many people are still in jail after January 6th without any chance for bail, just stuck in jail and some of them didn't even enter the Capitol. They took selfies. Disabled veterans, grandmothers, a high school kid from Georgia still in jail. There's never been an Antifa person who's done more than 12 minutes in jail, and these people are beyond 3, heading to 4 months in jail.
Ironically, these are the same people, Jerry, that have been telling us we need to decarcerate. We have too many people in prison.
Right.
We need to end cash bail. Cash bail is a detriment for due process because you're still innocent until proven guilty, except for the insurrectionists. They can all go straight to hell.
I want to know, when is Rashida Tlaib going to demand Chauvin be free? Because she doesn't believe in incarceration. She doesn't believe in prisons. So I assume she thinks Derek Chauvin should be back on the streets. But we haven't heard from her yet. Haven't really heard from Ayanna Pressley. We've heard from a lot of other people. Perhaps the most insane, and this is not a fringe person. This is Valerie Jarrett, one of the most powerful people in the world.
She got Roseanne kicked off TV. That's how powerful she is.
Right. Well, she,
let's not forget that.
She worked for Obama. I believe, no conspiracy theory. She still wields power because lots of people believe Obama is the power behind the throne right now. And at times when you hear Biden speaking, I realize it's slow and it's shaky and it's confused. But that's not the Joe Biden that people knew the last 50 years, talking about, everything is systemic racism. Everything is a critical race theory. I mean, he's gone fully over to the insane left. He sounds like,
pull the string. Just pull the string. And
he sounds like Ayanna Biden at times, and that's because he's got Obama in his ear. But can we take a look at Valerie? These tweets yesterday from that side just got more insane by the minute. This is Valerie Jarrett talking about a black teenager was killed because a police officer immediately decided to shoot her in order to break up a knife fight. Demand accountability, fight for justice. Just because an officer can use deadly force does not mean he should. Have you ever seen in your life a better example, other than in the movies when things are not real? In real life, have you ever seen a movie that better justified police force, deadly force?
And when I read these tweets, Jerry, all I can think of is imagine if they lectured carpenters or doctors in the same way. Well, nobody should ever die, Jerry, on the operating table. Doctors need to be held responsible when things go wrong. It's like the cops, yes, they're doing life and death things. Occasionally people are going to die in these things because it's a cruel world out there. And when you try to stab somebody, you can die. Just this idea that, what background does Val Jarrett have in de-escalation? What the hell is she talking about? I would love to hear an explanation of what the hell was this cop supposed to do there?
It's the simplest question I've tweeted a few times, like to LeBron James. It's the simplest follow-up. What was he supposed to do?
Taser. Okay, I'll be remembered. Jerry, why couldn't you use his taser?
Okay, the two we heard yesterday was taser and shoot her in the leg, which one is even sillier than the other. I mean, we've seen people tasered. We've heard the stories. If he tased her, she still stabs the girl in pink.
Yeah,
maybe kills her.
300 pounds.
And can you imagine the fallout? Just imagine the fallout is if he held his fire, which is going to be the next big story. Somewhere in this country, it might be Columbus, Ohio, might be wherever, it might be Boston, wherever. A cop is going to hesitate because they know, and especially if it's not their life on the line, if it's someone else's, a stranger's, because that's what they do. They go there and they go into the line of fire for strangers. This cop did it heroically. He's being targeted, doxxed by these crazy people on the left like LeBron James. And next time a cop is going to have that thought, it might be, only take a fraction of a second, but a cop's going to say, do I want to do this? Do I want to be the next Nick Reardon and have LeBron James target me and have someone can I just, can I just avoid that? I'll stay back here. I'll walk slowly to the scene of the crime. You know, I won't pull out my gun. I'll tase her, and then she'll kill the kid, and people will say, "Why didn't you shoot her?" But just imagine this, Turtle Boy and Dave. If Nick Reardon said, "I don't need this hassle. I'm not going to shoot her," and the video comes out, and there's the big knife, and there's the big girl, and she is plunging it into the girl in pink, killing her. Do you think they say, "Oh, good, the cop let the kids fight. They let them have their fun"?
This is an example of good policing. This is a case study.
You know what would happen, Jerry? Nothing, because you would never hear about it.
Yeah.
You would never hear about it. That story would never make the news. The only reason this made the news is because a cop killed a 16-year-old girl. That is the only reason this is news.
Well, a 16-year-old black girl.
Black girl.
And by the way, the headlines and the stories, the media, once again, they're disgusting. They're as vile as LeBron James. The headline to the New York Times, I believe the AP too, but the headline of the New York Times mentions that it happened just before. It was 4:40. No, just after, because I think it's Central Time, 4:45 Central Time. It happened just after the announcement of the conviction of Derek Chauvin. Only minutes later, I believe the New York Times said unarmed, but they lie about everything, so it's no surprise. No mention of a knife, no mention of the girl in pink, no mention of it. It's just a 16-year-old black Columbus girl shot by white cop in Columbus. The media has a goal here, if you haven't noticed, and I think many others, politicians, the president, have a goal, is to keep this country as divided as it can along racial lines. Keep the racial strife, the racial hatred going. Fan the flames of racial hatred. That's the goal from the White House. That's the goal from the New York Times, the Washington Post, the AP and CNN, is to keep this going. Make this about race when it's just the opposite. It's a white cop making an instant decision to save the life of a young black girl when he didn't have to. He could have, looked the other way, literally, and the girl's dead. And as you say, we never hear about it. But this guy did just the opposite. He took this chance and saved the life of the kid and the girl in pink. And for these lunatics say, "Oh, white cop, black kid, bad."
Here's the thing, Jared, we're 30 minutes into talking about this, right? And we haven't even addressed the reason this girl is dead that nobody will touch except for Turtle Boy. And that is the parenting. In every one of these situations, Adam Toledo, why is a 13-year-old boy out at 2:30 in the morning with gangbangers? Bad parenting. I'll just come out and say it. Your kids should not find themselves in the position where they're being shot by cops. That's not normal. This girl got shot by a cop because she was in a foster home. If her mother had done her job, the one job a mother has to do, and that's be a mother and taking care of her kids, then her child would not have been in the foster home in the first place, and she'd still be alive today because she wouldn't come in contact with these other troubled children who she fights with knives, apparently, for eons.
For eons. Yeah, let's do one more tweet from, is it Bree Newsom, the U.S., the BLM activist? This is incredible. And this was early on in the day, 12:27 a.m. The day, whatever. Teenagers have been having fights, including fights involving knives, for eons. We do not need police to address these situations by showing up to the scene and using a weapon against one of the teenagers. Y'all need help. I mean that sincerely. And her name is Bree Newsom, and her slug thing, Twitter handle is defund and abolish police, refund our communities. Blue check mark, of course. I mean, it's just so ignorant. It's beyond, you don't even know what to say. It's so ignorant. If the cop doesn't show up at that instant, the girl in pink is dead. Period.
I just never, because I've done blogs on this before with white people too. 5 years ago, a girl in Auburn, a baby girl, died in foster care. The conditions were unsound, right? The mother went on the news and was all like, "Oh my God, this is so wrong. The system needs to change." And everybody felt bad for the mother. And I did a blog, a white mother, by the way. And I did a blog basically just like, no, your kid should not have been in foster care. I never, ever, ever want to hear a parent whose child is in foster care whine about the outcome. It's unacceptable. It's not normal to lose your kids to DCF. ever. That is 100% your fault. And yes, it shouldn't be a death sentence going to foster care, but at least if they're under your control, you can control them. If they're in foster care, you have no control. So don't allow, you're not a victim. That's 100% your fault. If the media had any balls, they would be calling out the mother for this. She's the bad guy, not the cop.
They would be, of course. And the amazing thing is the woman didn't have custody of her child. And if you want to go back to Adam Toledo, AOC said Adam Toledo should be getting tucked into bed by his mother tonight.
Tucked in.
A, he was out at 2:40 in the morning shooting at cars with his fellow gang member. B, his mother hadn't seen or heard from him in 2 days. He's 13 and didn't report it. He was gone for 2 days and she didn't even report it. So we're supposed to think if he hadn't been shot, his mother would have been tucking him into bed and telling him a story at 9 p.m. It's comical to listen to these people, especially that empty skull AOC. But back to Ma'Khia Bryant. It was hours. It was the same day. I mean, this thing happened in 4:45. I think that night or maybe the next morning. Her mother is before the cameras talking about what a wonderful kid she was. She called her motherly, which is a little strange. Motherly, peaceful. And I'm thinking, before I even knew the circumstances, I'm thinking, could you do that? Your kid was just shot dead by cops while trying to stab another kid. And your first instinct is, where are the cameras? To do an interview? I mean, you can get this, Dave. It's very strange, the mother doing the interview. But the really strange part is you find out later, I found out later, she didn't even have custody of her. The kid was in foster care, and her mother said she was an honor student, and she remembered the conversation saying, "Mom, I made the honor roll." And I'm thinking, what was that, on visiting day, or was that over the phone? Because she doesn't even live with you. Mm-hmm. And you'd think there'd be some, I don't want to say shame, but some reluctance to go out there and publicly talk about a kid who wasn't even in your custody, a 16-year-old. Who was in a foster home.
Did anybody fact check that, by the way? Did anybody fact check if she was indeed? Because she's being reported as an honor student now.
That's a good call. How about this? Why wasn't the mother who was out there talking about this, why didn't she have custody? How did she lose custody of this child? And if she's an honor student.
There's the story. There's the story right there, Jerry. If you start addressing problems like that, we might actually fix issues in this country, because the biggest problem in this country is not policing. It's the complete breakdown of the nuclear family in America. The reason that suburban schools and stuff like that do better isn't because the teachers are better or anything like that. It's because the majority of kids come from two-parent homes where education is valued, morals matter, and stuff like that. That is the biggest issue in this country. That is the cause of socioeconomic decline, of the fact that people aren't climbing the social ladder and stuff like that. It is because of the home, and nobody would ever touch that. Why is that?
Well, I was just reading about the girls in Cincinnati, the two 13-year-olds. One stabbed the other in the neck or slashed her throat. And the girl, the victim, it just says, lived with her mother and her 7 siblings, and no mention of dad. And it was tough. And it doesn't. This is a victim, but I mean, obviously, if you find out Ma'Khia Bryant had it tough, you think, okay, I understand why she, why she got in trouble at school, or why she talked back to the teacher, why she got in a fight in the playground, but why she took a steak knife with about a 12-inch blade and tried to plunge it into another child. I have trouble saying that's all the fault of mom or dad. They don't help. Believe me, this mother does not help matters, but that's beyond being a troubled child. That's attempting to murder another child at the age of 16.
How do you get like that? How do you get like that?
Ma'Khia was named after a male prophet in the Bible. She was a very loving, peaceful little girl. She was 16 years old. She was an honor roll student. And Ma'Khia had a motherly nature about her. She promoted peace. And that's something that I want to always be remembered.
And again, that's mom. The day of the crime, you can see that the crime scene is still active. And by the way, how old is mom? She looks like she's,
So the media is standing right there asking questions. Nobody ever asked, why wasn't your daughter in your house? That's the first question I would ask her. Why is she here?
It's a good question. And I'm always reluctant to make a blanket statement. I know you're not, but I'll tell you a quick story about a friend of mine. He has a son about my son's age. They played sports. He was coached everything. I coached against him for years and knew him. He was just a great guy and a great coach and seemed to be a great father. His son OD'd 3 times. He was an athlete too, but after high school, he's found the joys of heroin and OD'd 3 times. Went to rehab many times. Finally got out and got busted for selling fentanyl to someone who OD'd and died. And now he's facing manslaughter. And the mother could not have done more. Sometimes there's only so much they can do. I don't think, Turtle Boy, you're wrong on this one. I don't think that woman we just heard from is that kind of caring parent. In fact, I know she's not because she didn't even have custody of her child. And I would say the same thing for Adam Toledo's mom, who didn't even report him missing, a 13-year-old. For 2 days, and he was out at 240 shooting at cars. So, yes, much of this responsibility falls at the feet of mom, and who knows even where dad is. But back to the questions, the idiotic questions we heard immediately in the aftermath in this, and one was, why not use a taser, which is, we know tasers don't always slow down, and we know like Jacob Blake got tased, didn't slow him down. If he pulled out a taser in that instant with the arm already back, she finishes the act. She stabs the kid. Then you have a one tased killer, and you have a victim. It's insane, but even more insane. And this actually happened, and we can play it. When the media starts grilling the cop, the chief of police in Columbus, about why he didn't shoot her in the leg or the arm, like it's some kind of movie. Well, I don't know, like a Quentin Tarantino deal where you shoot. Why not just shoot the finger, the trigger finger, or shoot the hand?
Like they're playing Duck Hunt or something. That's just like, you can hit a moving target. It's just what? Because they're small and they're legs and they move a lot and they don't have a center of gravity. That's why you shoot the chest. Duh.
What if he shot the leg and she still stabbed the girl? You have a girl, again, a killer with a bullet in her leg and a dead girl. They don't know what to say. They want it to be about race. They want it to be about police brutality. It is not, and they really don't know where to turn. And I know I expected to hear it from Twitter, on Twitter, from idiots like Valerie Jarrett and AOC, hear stupid things like, why not shoot her in the leg? But from actual reporters in an actual press conference to an actual cop, and again, he handled it fine. He explained it well, but there's actually people who say he should have shot her in the leg. And by the way, back to our president, he said that during the campaign. I don't know if you remember. He talked about police reform, and part of police reform, he said, was about shooting suspects in the leg or in the arm.
He did say that during it was a debate. He said that.
Yes, it was during a debate, and it was remarkable. All the people, all the Twitter analysts and others were just like, did he really just say that they should learn how to shoot suspects in the leg? Again, if he shoots her in the leg and the girl continues the act and stabs the other girl, what are we saying then? What the hell is he doing? He could have saved her life.
You could also miss when you shoot somebody in the leg very easily because it's a small object and it's narrow compared to the chest. It's freaking insane, these people. And by the way, Gerry, we've heard a lot from liberals about this. I'm sure Liz Warren will chime in and say Micaiah Bryant should be alive today, stuff like that.
Right,
Have we heard from any conservatives? Like, where is Kevin McCarthy and the GOP on this, releasing a statement saying we support this officer? Where's the Republican governor of Ohio, Mike DeWine? Has he released a statement saying that
That's a good question. We could check on that, but they should be holding up commendations, ribbons, medals, and saying, this is for you, Nick Reardon. This is for you, a white cop who didn't care about race or anything, just said, I'm going to save that girl's life, and you did. And if he's not honored, I'm with you. Every Republican, every conservative who cowered to the mob and says, yeah, maybe it's not the time or the place, they should be standing up and yelling it from the rooftops to say, this was great courageous, heroic police work. But can we hear from the reporter who wanted to know why Nick Reardon, the marksman, Columbus police officer who saved this girl's life, why he didn't shoot Ma'Khia Bryant in the leg?
One of the difficult things with that is when you're trying, we don't train to shoot the leg because that's a small target. We train to shoot center mass. What is available to stop that threat? There was a threat going on, a deadly force threat that was going on, so the officer is trained to shoot center mass, the largest part of a body that is available to them. When you try to start shooting legs or arms, rounds miss, and then they continue on, and there are people behind that could be in danger that are not committing anything. So we try and minimize any danger to anyone else if we have to use our firearm.
I give him credit. He didn't laugh or mock the questioner, but it's pretty simple. The job is to neutralize the threat, and the guy did it beautifully. And thank God, once again, thank God for the body cam. Can you imagine today, Turtle Boy, what the New York Times, what Joy Reid, what Elizabeth Warren are saying today if there's no body cam?
Oh, no. Body cams are the best thing. Ironically, what BLM wanted has turned out to be the saving grace for police officers everywhere, because 99% of these are showing that they were actually heroic and stuff like that. And by the way, Mike DeWine has released a statement, and this is everything that is wrong with the GOP, Jerry. This statement right here. He says that he watched the footage of Bryant's killing and called it a horrible tragedy. He added that while the public has the video evidence, quote, we need to let the investigation play out. Did Democrats say anything like that when they saw the George Floyd video? No. Your instant response as a Republican when you see that video should say, good shot, good job, officer. That guy is a hero, and he's invited here tomorrow, and I'm going to shake his hand. But no, we have a bunch of feckless see you next Tuesday running this party, Jerry. It's a joke.
He's pathetic. He's a rhino, and don't expect any more from him. But you're right. Like, the media will say what we're saying. We'll say it was great police work, heroic, but the politicians are too afraid. I mean, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene will, or Ted Cruz will say something like that. But for the most part, they're cucks. They're gutless. And
why do we put up with this? The Democrats don't put up with cucks.
No.
They put AOC up. They got, what I mean? It's like, why can't we find more Ron DeSantis's and Josh Hawley's and Ted Cruz's? It's not that hard. There are just so many Republicans like Mike DeWine who you never hear about. Like that, who can you name me the senators from North Carolina, Jerry, or North Dakota? Can you? No, I don't know, but I feel like I know the name of every Democratic senator because they're all insane. Whereas so many Republicans just quiet, never hear from them. And
they'd be having a field day if there were no body cam, or if this were just a bad shooting, or if this were whatever George Floyd, if this were Derek Chauvin, they wouldn't hesitate. They wouldn't hold back. They wouldn't say, oh, it's a tragedy. They would be saying, we want this cop's head on a stick. Period. Hell, some of them are saying it now, even with the body cam, which is madness. See, this is what a lot of people portrayed the Floyd Chauvin case as. This is genuinely divisive, polarizing. This is splitting it down the middle, because this is clearly a good shooting, great police work. And these lunatics, as you point out, they're all crazy. These lunatics on the other side don't care. All they see, and I include Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, all they see is black victim, white cop. That's all they need. That's all they need to keep the fires burning. Literally.
That was his statement. When he released the statement, Biden said something to the effect of he didn't say the cop was at fault or anything like that, but he's like, far too many black people are killed by police. It's so the implication is clear here that you think this girl should not have been killed. And you don't even have the balls to just say that this girl, the cop is wrong. You just put out a blanket statement about systemic racism, which, by the way, is another brilliant marketing thing, because systemic racism is a concept that you can't prove exists or doesn't exist. So you don't have to find an individual. You can just blame a whole system, and therefore it'll never end.
And what you can do, you can make it unacceptable to not accept it. You must accept the premise that the country is riddled with racism, and from top to bottom, as Liz Warren says, the justice system from top to bottom, meaning judges and prosecutors and cops, all racist. She makes that statement, and to refute that, disagree with that, is to be racist or to be inappropriate. So they can do that and make it unacceptable to not accept their presence, their premise. And they've done that. They've done it. If you say, hell, if you're a kid in school, say you're a high school kid at virtually any school, and you say, I don't believe the country's systemically racist, whoa, what? I mean, you might get kicked out of class. You'll definitely flunk. That's just not acceptable. You imagine going to BU, home of Ibrahim Kendi, and saying, I don't believe that premise. I don't buy his premise that we're all racist. You would be, if not, kicked out. You'd be a pariah. You'd be like a lunatic that treat you like you're a friggin' Klansman. That's the point we've gotten. They've changed the language. They've changed what's acceptable and unacceptable. And I'll give them credit. They've made it so that the average person thinks nothing's changed since 1870 in America. We're living in another Jim Crow era. But back to the tweets, the highlights, the top tweets from yesterday. This from Jamel Hill. She says, after the good shooting, the great police work, if you find yourself justifying killing children, you're an asshole. Probably worse than that, but let's start there. Now, she gets 18,000 likes and 2,800 retweets. Okay, this is exactly what I did, what you did, what any decent person did. We justified the killing of a child because we saw the video and we know the child was going to kill another child. So I just tweeted back at Jamel Hill and said she wanted the girl in pink to die. Now, that sounds like, snark or sark. It's not. I mean, you literally want the girl in pink to die if you say the cop was in the wrong here. You literally want the girl in pink to die, period. Tell me how that's wrong or any.
It's nothing. I mean, it was a terrible. I guess she doesn't watch The Walking Dead. The same scenario happened, and Carol had to literally put a bullet in the head of a 9-year-old because she was going to kill another kid. And it's just like, what? One of them was going to die. Just, I feel like the aggressor should be that person. I don't think that's that controversial.
Right. And I mean, we'll hear from the girl in pink again, hopefully. And, maybe she'll be with her lawyer or mother or whatever. But I just hope they don't get to her because I fear this pressure on her to, and I don't even know how she would do this, but pressure on her to not support the cop, which will be remarkable. And I think, to be honest with you, I think LeBron went too far, even for many of his sycophants. Many of the people that worship him are going to say, that was inappropriate, and good thing he thought, cooler heads prevailed and he deleted that. I'm still looking, I don't know, maybe you guys have seen it. The Boston Red Sox, he's a co-owner of the Red Sox, and I haven't seen anything from the Red Sox organization, from the other owners, distancing themselves from this egregious.
They'll release a statement. It's going to be about Black Lives Matter and Ma'Khia Bryant, though. It will ignore what LeBron said. Make no doubt about it.
And they'll mention how big their BLM sign is. It's the biggest in the country. It's 273 feet.
Apparently the Red Sox are doing good. I don't know. I won't watch baseball, not only because I hate this ownership, but I don't watch sports, Jerry, where the ownership hates me. And that's what they did by moving the All-Star game out of Georgia. They said that you are subhuman trash, and we can't even host a baseball game in a place where people like you exist. So I'm not watching stupid sports.
Can't host it in a place where they want to look at your ID when you vote. It's just like Jim Crow. By the way, the more you see it and hear it from the White House, and I realize much of it's not directly from Biden's mouth because he's incapable of it, but it's often from Kamala and it's daily from Jen Psaki. This is a strategy to embrace, to divide, to paint the opposition as Jim Crow 2.0, to say that everything's systemically racist and say, we're on this side, they're over there, and, pick a side. You want to be with us or you want to be with the Jim Crow crowd? That's their strategy. I'd like to play, if we can, Dave, some Psaki because, she's a spokesperson. She's just sent out there to give you whatever, the talking points. But it is genuinely disgusting when you see what happened in Columbus and your first instinct is to make it about how racist the system is? Again,
These people hate America.
it's the opposite. It's the opposite. A white cop laid it out on the line in an instant, made the decision to save a girl's life. How is that not heroic? How?
This is
Because
what happens when the leader of the free world speaks through a ginger, Jerry. This is the kind of thing. Every time I hear that woman's voice, I just yearn for Kayleigh McEnany. I'm
You're blaming the color of her hair? That's what the problem is?
Oh, it's a joke, Jerry. It's a joke.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The killing of 16-year-old Michaela Bryant by the Columbus police is tragic. She was a child. We're thinking of her friends and family and the communities that are hurting and grieving her loss. We know that police violence disproportionately impacts Black and Latino people in communities, and that Black women and girls, like Black men and boys, experience higher rates of police violence. We also know that there are particular vulnerabilities that children in foster care like Micaiah face. And her death came, as you noted, just as America was hopeful of a step forward after the traumatic and exhausting trial of Derek Chauvin and the verdict that was reached. So our focus is on working to address systemic racism and implicit bias head on, and of course to passing laws and legislation that will put much needed reforms into place at police departments around the country.
Right, stop. You are a disgusting human being, Jen Psaki. Disgusting. That is nauseating. On the heels of what we saw, a guy, heroically saving the life, a white man saving the life of a young Black girl, the girl in pink. You're going to make it about systemic racism and how Black police violence. She calls it police violence. How about police courage? How about bravery? How about going in there in that moment of chaos and making a split-second decision to save the life of a child? No mention of the fact that he saved the life of a child. You are disgusting, Jen Psaki, and by extension, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, to use that as a chance to, race hustle. That's what you're doing. You're a bunch of race hustlers.
And they didn't even address what happened. That's just a general statement that you could release any day. Any day you could release that statement. That's their general position, right? Just vague nonsense about we're going to fix systemic racism.
Yeah, but the implication, Turtle Boy, is that this applies in this case.
Right. I know what but they don't come out and say that. Just come out and say it. If you think this shooting was the result of systemic racism, then say that. Instead, they just released this general statement that they could release any day of the week before or after the shooting. Doesn't matter. They waited until this. We know what the implication is, but they don't even have the balls to just be like, yeah, this happened because this is racist. They can't even say that.
I want to know from Everett in our comment section on Facebook, because he's always in there. He's chirping at everybody
else.
Why
are you listening to this?
But he's chirping at everybody else. What's the alternative? The alternative is the girl in the pink dies. Like, that's the alternative. Yes. What is the alternative, Everett?
Everett hates that Black girl. He wants her to die. Everett hates Black girls, and he just wishes they didn't exist. And so that's why he likes people like Micaiah Bryant, because they kill Black girls, because Everett is kind of like a psychopath who enjoys watching teenagers get stabbed to death. That's the only explanation.
It is. That's the only conclusion.
Dissenting opinion, but he's just chirping everybody else instead of saying what the alternative is. So just let us know, and we'll go back onto the show. But let us know in the comments, and I'll point it out. I'll put it up here.
It's a great question. Great question. What is the alternative? The girl
Have him call in. Have him call in.
Sure.
The girl in pink dies. Period. That's the only alternative. Unless you think she would survive, I guess she could survive getting that big knife plunged into her by a girl who's much bigger and stronger, plunged into her chest or her stomach. Maybe you're right. Maybe she survives. Maybe she's hospitalized. Maybe she somehow pulls through. I guess that would be the alternative. But without the heroic act of the officer, the knife ends up in the body, in the flesh of the girl in pink, and people like Everett know it. They're just so cynical when you think of what they're doing. They're exploiting the situation and saying, "Oh, she's a child. She's a child." Well, yeah, so's the other kid. I think she was about to kill another child. I mean, again, the 13-year-olds in Cincinnati. One of them's only 13. And we're supposed to say, oh, the poor child. She slashed the throat of another 13-year-old. It's just that, they got nowhere to go. People like Everett, people like Valerie Jarrett and Bree Newsom have nowhere to go. And disgusting people like LeBron James have their heads up their asses. Honestly, he didn't even think it through. He just said, there's the cop. He's just like Chauvin. Let's get him. That's all he said, which again is encouraging violence, which is violating all the rules of Twitter and Facebook and everyone else. He should be banned from all of them. Of course, he won't be because he doesn't like cops and he likes Biden, so he's cool. Everything's cool.
This happened at Tuesday at 4:30. Tuesday at 4:30, Jerry. I, like millions of other Americans, was kind of like waiting on the edge of our seats, like refreshing our phones, seeing if the verdict was in.
No, these girls, I think the verdict came in, and this happened right afterwards, right?
This happened at 4:30. This is like minutes before the verdict.
I think it was minutes after, if I'm not mistaken.
Was this how they celebrate? I don't like.
That's a good. I think it could be wrong. We'll check.
I guess my point here is like these kids are just so detached from even current events and reality. They're probably not even following the George Floyd trial. I mean, the Derek Chauvin trial. They're probably not even paying attention to it because they're just in their own little teenage world doing teenage things, stabbing each other over something really important, like who talks shit to who. That's probably what this is over.
And immediately there's a huge rally and a march in Columbus, and the Ohio State students demand the university end all ties to Columbus PD, to the Columbus Police Department. They don't want them on campus. They don't want them involved in anything at Ohio State. Which if I'm the Columbus Police Department, I say, sounds good to us. See ya. The cop did, again, not only did he not do anything wrong, he did something heroic. And the response from, educated, 18 to 22-year-olds is to march in the street with signs saying Micaiah Bryant, had her say her name, and then go and demand that they no longer allow Columbus cops on their campus. It's utter insanity. And they marched, by the way, all through the streets. And I don't know if they did any damage, but that's probably coming because they're going to exonerate and they should honor Nick Reardon. But
can we see if we can hear from we called him out. We said to call in. Can we hear from Everett right now? Everett's on the phone line.
You don't really want to do that, do you? You're going to do that to me?
Everett, what do you got?
Let's do it.
Here's your opinion.
Hey, Jerry, don't be scared now. I'm on the phone.
Hey, all right, Everett, it's been a long time, but I'm just going, Everett. Hold on, Everett. Hold on. Well, you're not going to control it. You're not going to control the conversation. I am, and I'm going to start with one question. We'll see how you handle it. Did you want the girl in pink to die?
No.
Okay, then what the hell are you talking about? He stopped
non-lethal weapon, Jerry. Taser. What's the taser for, Jerry? What's the taser for?
Oh, Jesus. Tasers.
I'm dead serious. Why are you saying, oh, Jesus is your answer? What's the taser
because
for?
Taser doesn't always stop people. Jacob Blake was tasered.
You answer my question.
She will, if he tasered, I'll answer your question. If he tased her, she still would have stabbed the girl in pink.
What's the taser for? You didn't answer the question. What's the taser for?
I'll answer the question. The taser is for non-lethal force. So when the police come across a situation where the threat of somebody dying is imminent, they have to use lethal force. That's the difference between a gun and a taser. A taser is for non-lethal situations.
Okay, so when the cops use a taser during a situation where a person has a weapon, which has been done plenty of times.
Right. And the person is not in the act of stabbing someone.
Listen. Let me just say this. The argument isn't that the cop was in the wrong. The argument is there should be a different alternative. When it comes to situations in a black neighborhood or when black people are involved in a dispute, for some reason, lethal force is always the first option. Now, you have a cop who killed Dante Wright saying, taser, shooting him with a gun.
So, yeah, she was arrested.
So my point
she
is,
screwed up. She thought she used to taser.
Jamela Hill's point is, Alana Presley's point is that there could have been an alternative, Jerry.
Okay, there wasn't. How about you just say thank you to the officer, Nick Reardon? How about you just say thank you for saving the life of a young black girl? How about that?
I'm not condemning the officer, but if
you are. You're saying he did the wrong thing. You're saying he screwed up.
Jerry, until you have black friends, my fault. You don't have.
Okay, it doesn't have anything to do with race. How about we do this, Everett? How about we talk about it without mentioning what race the cop or the kid is? How about that? Because it doesn't matter.
Start dying,
the cop didn't see race.
He's dying unnecessarily. I see it all the time. I seen a white guy in Wisconsin the other day drive his car at cops, at police officers.
So what's your point?
Don't tell me you didn't see that video. It was the white guy.
What's your point? What's your point?
The guy at Walmart didn't die, Jerry.
All right, another simple question for you, Everett. If Micaiah Bryant were white, do you think Nick Reardon, the cop, would have shot her?
Well, according to Turtle Boy, if Ma'Khia Bryant,
I'm asking you, Everett. I'm asking you if the girl with the knife,
that problem would have never happened. No, if it was a white kid, that cop would have never shot.
So the other girl in pink would have died.
That's a fact.
The girl in pink would have died, in your opinion.
If no. Wait. Let's do the racist scenario, and then let's do the reality. If it was white people, according to you, Turtle Boy, and everybody else, there wouldn't have been no knife. There wouldn't have been no situation like that, right?
What are you talking about?
Because they're white.
No, we never said that. We never said that.
Everett, just answer the question on the incident. Just answer the question on the incident, Everett.
Oh, no, time out. I want to address that because I was the one that brought that up. Did you listen to what I said earlier? I shit on white parents that lose their kids to foster care. I've written about white parents who lose their kids to foster care all the time. If you lose your kids to foster care like that, I don't want to hear about your complaints. So what?
You sound like an idiot saying that, right? I used to do therapeutic foster care, by the way.
Congratulations. I bet you're real proud of yourself.
3 years. Hold up. I did therapeutic foster care for over 3 years. Let me explain something to you. A lot of times those kids, some of those kids were in foster care on their own because of their own behavior, where the parent put them in foster care because it was the best situation for that child and that family at that time.
I don't want to do this. I don't want Everett's take on foster care.
Let's stick with this. Let's stick with the situation. Gerry, that cop, that was a white situation. I promise you, we've seen it before. That cop would not have shot Ma'Khia Bryant.
Well, good. Then you know what? Then that cop would be a villain today because the cop would have let a child die. Well,
Tell that to Daniel. Tell that to
Daniel.
Daniel.
Nowhere to go on this, Everett. You sound like a fool, just like Valerie Jarrett and LeBron James and Jamel Hill. If the kid is white, if Ma'Khia Bryant is white, of course the cop shoots. Of course he saves the other child. That was his only choice, his only option. If he doesn't, the girl in pink is dead.
And just to be
clear,
clear,
it's so hard to understand.
And we're having the exact same conversation today.
No, you know we're having, Dave. We're having what was wrong with that cop? Why didn't he do his job? Why didn't he save the girl in pink? He's the bad guy if he doesn't pull the trigger. I mean, there's no debate there. That's obvious. I hate to say it, but that's black and white. He doesn't see race. He sees a knife. He sees a potential murder if he doesn't act quickly. Why'd you do that to me?
You've been begging for the phone line, so at least it's a real clear line, by the way. Great phone line out of Everett. Loved it.
We'll do another day. We'll let others, not just Everett, talk. It was nice to hear from him. I haven't heard from him in years, and nice to know he hasn't changed his tune one bit. But this story is fascinating because people like Everett have nowhere to go with it. They want to make it about race. They want to make it about police brutality, say what he did. They can't. I mean, we could put a police authority, put a law enforcement authority on right now to tell us if he tased her, she probably continues with the act and stabs the other kid. Then you have a tased murderer and a dead girl.
I mean, it's pretty simple, Gerry.
Right.
Tasers are for non-lethal situations. So for instance, Jacob Blake had a knife, but he wasn't trying to stab officers with it. That is why they attempted to tase him. The second he got into that car with children inside of it and he reached for the knife inside the car, then that becomes a lethal situation. So if you're actively doing something that is putting other people in danger, it is lethal. If you're not, if you simply possess a knife and you're not, trying to slash somebody, it's non-lethal, and then you use a taser. This isn't that hard to figure out.
By the way, I don't know where you go today, if you're Joy Reid or Jamel Hill or whatever, if you're Chris Cuomo, where you go today. Joy Reid already told us what an honor student. Then they played the TikTok video of Ma'Khia Bryant doing her hair, and they tried to make it seem like she was an innocent child shot dead by a racist cop. It didn't work. It's not going to work. They got nowhere to go. You know what they're going to do? They're going to move on to some other story because this doesn't fit the narrative in any way. Unless you want to be honest and say this is a rare good cop doing the right thing. They're gonna have to move on. Hopefully, for their sake, there's other racist incidents that they can latch on to because this one didn't work. Sorry, Joy Reid, Jamel Hill. Sorry, Chris Cuomo. This didn't work. Didn't serve your purposes. Time to move on. And for us, you know what? I had a bunch of other stuff to get to, but I guess we can wait and do that another day. By the way, today, big day for Deshaun Watson. there's a press conference with Tony Busby, the lawyer for all the women, the masseuses, the massage therapists who are suing. 12 of them, 12, say they're going to show up at the press conference and be available. You're talking about, this is, I mean, on Bill Clinton's worst day, there were like 3, right? You know, when Trump brought Juanita Broderick and Bond, we're talking 12 young women who are going to sit there and say, ask me, I'll tell you the story. I'll tell you all about what a creep Deshaun Watson is. This could go badly for Deshaun Watson. And by the way, for the Texans and the NFL, to have one of the faces of the franchise, one of the great young players, turn out to be an absolute freak, a creep. That's not good. Not good.
Not good.
But we'll monitor that situation. We'll check out the video and see. Maybe they get cold feet, or maybe they don't want to talk. They just want to listen to Tony Busby. But I'm not even sure how Deshaun Watson makes it go away. Can he write a big check today and make it all go away?
I think you need to write a big check a long time ago. Now he's
just got to go on the offensive. He's got to go full Nancy Pelosi. That's what you do in these situations. You just like, no, I'm the victim and you're the bad guy, and that's how it's going to be. Screw you. He should play the race card.
He kind of did when it all started, right? He tweeted that out, or he put it on Instagram, and it seemed like he was ready to fight. And then
need more of that. He's got to go on the offensive.
He need to be consistent. You need to be real consistent. Go at it, and
they're all just call them all liars. They're all, and then play that race card. Like a black man can't even be successful in this country without people trying to tear us down. I see how it is.
Well, let's get this straight. I mean, I personally think he's a scumbag, and at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. That's my opinion. But
how about this one? And this one would work with the around the horn crowd say. They didn't do anything to Bob Kraft when he went and got all kinked out at a massage parlor. You know, they didn't fine him, punish him, suspend him. Why are they picking on the young black guy?
That's what I would do if I was him.
Pull that card, even though you know he's a little kinky, a little freaky.
It's bullshit, but obviously, like, you got to do what you got to do, and that's what Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I love Nancy Pelosi. People shit on her all. I wish we had more people like Nancy Pelosi who just got up there. Like, I'll never forget how she handled that mask thing. It was brilliant. It was just like, no, it's their fault. I want the apology right now. It's like
they set me up.
They set me up. That's what Deshaun Watson should do. Like, this whole thing was a setup. I went there and they're touching me and stuff like that. What am I going to say? Stop.
And then when Maxine Waters, threatens the jury and demands a verdict, or there's going to be violence in the street, she says, nothing wrong with that. No problemo. And backs up her woman, her girl. And, every single Democrat fell in line. Not one Democrat voted to censure Maxine Waters, who did much more inciting of the mob than Trump ever did. But that's okay because, she's a good liberal, an 82-year-old lunatic liberal from L.A., and she can do or say whatever she wants. But she hasn't chimed in on this yet. I don't think. We'll have to check and see what Maxine Waters has to say, and we'll see how the media treats Nicholas Reardon. I'm only naming him because he's a hero, and he deserves to be named, acknowledged. Nicholas Reardon is the officer who saved the life of the young girl in pink, and maybe we'll learn both their names today or in the coming days, and that'd be a good thing, because then maybe you point out, Turtle Boy, maybe some of the Republicans or some of the media not totally, in the tank for the Democrats, some of they honor him, acknowledge him, say what a brilliant job he did here to save this girl's life. And hopefully the girl in pink doesn't get pressured or intimidated to turning on the man who saved her life. But it's going to be fascinating going forward. It's not working out when they move on, and they will move. Emma, all the media, the New York, they will move on today, because this isn't the narrative they're looking for. This isn't systemic racism. This isn't police brutality. This is tragic, of course, but it's about, if you want to make it about bad parenting and that woman who was talking about her daughter, even though her daughter is in foster care, you can do that, but you can't make this cop the bad guy, because he ain't. He's a hero. But anyway, Turtle Boy, thanks. But you have a good blog on the mother, correct?
Yes, we do.
On bad parenting. How's that?
Yes, that's my take. That's always my take, is where's the parent?
Which is a theme, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying it doesn't always apply. But in this case, I'm going to guess that you can look at the The Adam Toledo story, when the mother didn't even report the kid missing, let alone tuck him into bed that night. And this story where the girl, the deceased, was in foster care, I believe, on that block, right on that street, correct? She was in foster care in that neighborhood. The mother was nowhere to be found until the cameras showed up.
The cameras are rolling. The GoFundMe's coming soon. We're going to get, I mean, I assume there is one already, and she's going to do quite well for herself.
Can you imagine your kid did that? Not only did your kid try to kill another kid, but she got shot by the cops and died. And your first instinct is, anyone, I'm available for interviews. I mean,
they named her after the Bible. I don't remember anybody in the Bible having an apostrophe in their name, Jerry. No. If you put an apostrophe in your kid's name, you should lose custody of your kids immediately. That's the rule.
You just make life difficult. The kid has to go through life, spelling it 2 or 3 times for everybody who asks. It makes life more difficult. I don't know why you'd want to do that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We will see if the mothers continue to do interviews or if she, spends her time grieving, because this is a tragic situation all around. And we'll also see what else LeBron has to say today. When he finds out, I'm going to guess LeBron didn't even know the whole story, didn't even watch the whole video or read up at all. That was just an impulse, oh, another cop, we're coming for you next, bud. And we'll see if Twitter or, the NBA or anybody takes any action against LeBron. You know what they should do? They should just tell him that the cop is a Uyghur Muslim, and then he'll just shut up. He won't say another word. Just, the cop's a Uyghur Muslim, and LeBron will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, no comment, no comment. I'm not educated. I'm no comment." But anyway, thanks, Turtle Boy, and thanks to everybody for watching on YouTube and commenting. We had 1 million comments today, most of them pointing out what an idiot Everett is, but lots of other people are really passionate about this story. I'm telling you, this one hit a nerve with lots of people. So thanks for watching, commenting, listening. The podcast will be up in audio form shortly. Correct, Callahan?
That is correct. And you can go to CallahanPodcast.com to subscribe on YouTube, right? So you can watch, comment, see the madness that Everett creates in this chat. It's
CallahanPodcast.com if you want to look at us and look at what Turtle Boy's wearing. He's wearing his, what's that shirt say? Conservative Black Lives Matter. Conservative Black Lives Matter, and a red hat, which I find sort of offensive, but you can see all the comments and all the vitriol aimed at Everett. And we're going to do this every day, correct, Cullinane? We're going to do this every day. So subscribe if you want to watch. And if you want to listen, it'll be up later on all the usual places where you can find your podcast. But thanks to DCU and Allied Paving and Shea Concrete. And thanks to everybody out there for listening. I appreciate it. I'm Gerry Callahan. This is the Callahan Podcast, and we will talk to you again real soon.